laptop issues. Here we go. 2 minutes, he said. Here we go. We're going to get Mike Gill up soon.
We can see if we get Mike Gill added to
We'll
the show.
We'll see. Now, he's going to get stripped of his captaincy on this show.
Yeah, if he was a captain, he was under consideration for captaincy. That has now gone by the board. How disappointed are you that you've just been taken off the captain board, Gill? You're not getting a C on your jersey, on your T-shirt.
Well, they gave out 10 yesterday.
Yeah, 9. Well, now we're talking about that. Now, I downplayed it more than Jody. I mean, to me, Mike, when you're talking about 9 captains, doesn't that lessen the relevancy of the captaincy?
Who even recognizes that they wear, like, I guess now they do wear a C in football, right? Like it's a hockey sweater. Like, for how many years did Flyers fans beg for the Flyers to strip Claude Giroux of the C? Can you imagine starting to hear that? Like, they got to take the C off A.J. Brown. He doesn't deserve it.
Yeah. I just don't think it's relevant in football other than if, and Jody pointed out Desmond Ridder, if your quarterback isn't a captain, you got problems. You got problems.
Yeah, and it's like, I guess what's the don't they have like the if they have like a players only meeting or something, isn't there some sort of like captains
leadership committee.
There you go. The leadership,
by the way, committee is not 10 deep, 9 deep. It's not.
Right, I was going to say, are the captains on the leadership committee?
That's funny. Yeah, you bring that up. No, they're not. Well, at least last year. I don't know what the leadership committee is this year. We'll have to ask Nick that.
Well, what it does show, obviously.
Are you kidding me? Did you really just say that, John? You're going to ask Nick? You think he's going to tell you?
No,
but he never tells you anything. So he's going to tell you he's on the leadership committee.
No, he tells me a lot, but he'll say it off the record, so I can't talk about it. But he'll admit it, and it wasn't 9 deep last year. I don't think it's going to be 9 deep this year, but we'll see. He'll answer that question. Now, not publicly,
off the record, right?
Yeah. We better hope they don't need their leadership committee.
I don't think they need it because they are deep with leaders.
But generally, if your leadership committee, if the only reason we know about a leadership committee is because the 1 year, they need it to go to the leadership committee to kind of bring the team back together. You hope that you don't have a situation with this season where you're going down that road where things are getting rocky, where you have to have.
I saw both Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon talk about this. They both said the good teams we've been around, paraphrasing, the team takes over from a leadership standpoint. The locker room takes over. And they're talking about the Eagles, and they're talking about Kelsey and Cox and Graham and Johnson and Jalen. That's what happened here. So I don't think you have to worry about the Eagles' leadership at all. But I don't think it's because these guys are captains. They're just naturally
and it's what we, to kind of go down a different road a little bit. But this is what you and I talked about on my show yesterday, John, is when you look at this season, that's the one concern you have, not leadership, not talent, is you've got a bunch of guys who have been here for so long, which means what? You've got some older guys on this team who made it through the season healthy last year.
A long season. Yeah.
Right. How many of those guys are going to make it through another 17 games being counted on as much as they are? That, to me, entering Sunday, the fact that they've made it to the finish line with really no injury issues from training camp. But now that the clock starts, how many of these guys that they're counting on are going to make it through 17 weeks? And I'm looking at –
and it ain't even – it's not even 17, Mike. It's 20. 20's the goal again. So you got to go back-to-back 20.
True.
Which, that's difficult, especially –
and it's key guy. I mean, it's Bradbury, it's Slay, it's Brandon Graham, it's Fletcher Cox, it's Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson. And if you look at the offensive line, I don't know that the depth nearly as comfortable as you thought, as you hoped, or as much as last year. On the outside, if Bradbury or Slay go down, boy, you've got some unknowns out there. I think if Fletcher Cox got hurt and Brandon Graham, you may be okay, but those guys are pretty important.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go with you. Thanks for taking the conversation there. For me, there's no question there. If the two veteran guys on a defensive line go down, they get replaced. The Eagles have enough depth there that you're not going to go, oh, my God, no Fletcher Cox, no effing shot. No, someone else will step in and get the job done. But the comparison between the two veterans on the offensive line is compared to the two corners. Which is the greater drop-off?
Well,
you're going to move Jurgens to center. Okay, fine. Now you got to get yourself a new right tackle. And if Lane Johnson goes out, you talk about the best guy at his position. Slay isn't the best cornerback in the NFL. Bradbury isn't the best cornerback in the NFL. Johnson is the best right tackle in the NFL. Good luck replacing anybody who's the best at his position. Which would be the bigger hardship? Taking on the offensive line or the cornerback position?
It's very fair, Jody, but I would have to say the corners because
really, I
so
disagree.
Unknown. I mean, at least Driscoll has started games at right tackle in his career.
I agree. I agree with you, Mike, because for this reason, we know the Eagles can't win without Lane Johnson. We've seen it. But even so, like Jack Driscoll is far more proven than Josh Jobe.
Right. I mean, they have guys who have actually played that position at this level. You throw Josh Jobe in there for 4, 5, 6 week span, you're going to have teams probably firing the ball. It's going to be like the air raid to that side of the field until he proves otherwise. And quite frankly, like you said, Jurgens, if Jason Kelce, God forbid, got hurt, Jurgens has played there. Driscoll's also played right guard. So
Driscoll can't play both.
No, but we're not talking about three guys going down at the same time. I'm just saying.
No, two corners, two offensive linemen, the veterans. You guys brought up the veteran. Oh, my God. Mike Gill says they're getting old because they've got guys who are actually 30 years old. Well, I'll tell you right now, I would take my chances replacing Slay and Bradbury over I'm going to be without Lane Johnson or Jake.
Well, I don't want to be
Kelce
without
is the
both.
number one center in football. Lane Johnson is the number one right tackle. You going to put Bradbury or Slay at the top of the corner list in the National Football League?
No, but what that group, I would slightly disagree. I think Creed Humphrey's the best center, but Jason's in the conversation. Lane, I would say it's the best right tackle. And I agree, Slay, Bradbury are not the conversation to be the best corners. But to me, it's the back. Look, Cam Jurgens is playing center. Jason Kelce goes down. Jack Driscoll's playing right tackle. Then you got to figure out right guard. You got a 3rd-round pick. At least there's some talent there.
I'd take my chances with Josh Jobe over Tyler Steen right now.
But you're also now we're also saying if Josh Jobe is replacing one, who's replacing?
Yeah, who's replacing it? Then you're down to Ringo or Ricks.
Rich.
If you think Anthony Brown throwing a pick 6 in the 4th quarter of a preseason game in Baltimore is going to be evident of what's going to happen in a regular season game, I don't want Ringo or Ricks near the field this season, near it on defense. Special
I don't know that it's more. I don't know that it's more the level of talent of who went out. It's the level of talent of who's replacing.
Exactly. See, I think
the offensive linemen.
We just flat out look at it differently.
Yeah.
I think you got to look at it more of how great a player are you attempting to replace at that position. I'll put more of an emphasis on how good the guy who's starting being subtracted is rather than the guy who is being plugged in for him with basically no experience.
Yeah, I mean, I look at who's playing, right?
Yeah.
And I think you can be you'll be competent I think you'll be better than competent at center because I think Cam Jurgens is a good football player. I think you're not Kelce, but I think he'd be above average center in this league right away. And I think you're competent with Jack Driscoll. I don't think you're competent anywhere. Josh Jobe, maybe down the road, maybe 2-3 years down the road, these guys turn into something. But right now, I don't even think you would be competent at those positions. That's why I would lean towards, having a better chance on the offensive line than cornerback.
And here's the other reason why. And again, the level of the player. To me, it's drop off. You know you're going to be not as good if you lose one of your stuff. Where is the bigger drop-off? I would say the bigger drop-off is on the offensive line as compared to cornerback. And the other thing you got to bring into play, now they'll kill me on the stream for this one. Maybe that offensive lineman gets your quarterback hurt. If he's not up to speed and not ready to go, and Jalen Hurts gets blindsided and gets shoulder slammed into the turf, and it's more than just 2 weeks at a time, yeah, no, I don't want to even think about the possibility of that happening. That's why.
Well, these are all not good thoughts, Joe.
No,
none of these
being honest, you got to be honest if you're going to do a show like this.
They're not ideal thoughts, but to me, if I'm trying to find, I asked John this question yesterday. Last year, when we entered this season, the number one, without a doubt, question was, what is Jalen Hurts? Who is he going to be? Is he your quarterback? Am I going to have to draft a guy? Am I going to have to trade for a guy? He answered those questions, and that question is now sealed. You've got your quarterback. So now, entering this season, what is that unanswerable question entering this season? I don't know that there is a definitive one. The concern for me in this season is, can I get through another season? I was very healthy last year. Can I get through another season with the same core of guys? Can I get them through healthy again? To me, that is, and it's an unanswerable question because injuries just happen. You don't know when. You can't say, okay, I know I have till week 5 before somebody goes down. May happen, may not. Right. The other stuff, I don't know. Is there a question that I'm missing that is so big that you need to find out that will impact this season like last season? I don't know that there is.
Yeah. And to me, to get back to the original thought, which you obviously want everybody to be healthy, and it's going to be an issue for both. But to me, I would say if you can, and it's very hard to do this, but if you can pretend that Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey and Darius Slay and James Bradbury don't exist and say, all right, the only thing I have is Cam Jurgens and Jack Driscoll and Josh Jobe and Calais Ringo. Of those 4, who are you most confident in from 1 to 4? Who are you most confident?
That's not the question we're asking here. That's a separate question.
But that's why I say,
if you're losing those 4 players, where are you going to feel the pin? Where's the biggest drop off? You believe what level they're going to be able to play to. One on the defensive, one on the offensive side. That's the question Eagles have to answer. Not can you rank these 4 players in their ability to.
Well, no, because your original point, where would they be worse off? I'm saying if you have competency, you can't be worse off than not competency. Even if you think the drop off is greater, they have competency in Cam Jurgens at the bare minimum. Like I said, I think Cam's a good player.
But Jurgens, you're not talking about Jurgens. Jurgens is moving to center. It's the right guard position and the right tackle position. That's what you'd have to fill.
And you have competency in Jack Driscoll, and again, at least some upside in Tyler Steen.
So you don't think Jobe has any upside?
I don't think he has the upside of Tyler
Jobe's got a year under his belt in the NFL. Tyler Steen's got a couple snaps in preseason.
Well, the pedigree isn't everything, but one was a 3rd-round pick and one was undrafted. I mean, that tells you what the league thinks right off the bat. Now, the league gets stuff wrong all the time. There's undrafted kids in the Hall of Fame. But I do know that undrafted players eventually getting into the Hall of Fame. But if you're playing the odds,
what the hell are they doing with Reed Blankenship as the only safety that they'll actually acknowledge is starting?
I mean,
he was undrafted. How the hell can we know what the hell he's going to be able to do?
Well, again, you can always, I can bring up John Randall. All right. He's in the Hall of Fame. But you're a gambling guy, Jody. Yep. If you're playing the odds, you're not betting on the undrafted guy. So
yeah, I am. Oh, absolutely I am. Here's the odds.
What do you mean you are?
John, I'll try and explain it slowly. One was in the NFL last year, one wasn't in the NFL this year. That to me outweighs where you were drafted, where the Eagles decided to take you in the draft. What do I think is more important? A year experience in playing in the NFL instead, never having played a down that counted in the NFL. That's how I would look at it.
but I'm talking long term. But go ahead, Mike.
No,
we're under that premise,
the conversation we're having is about replacing the guy if they go out and get injured.
Yeah, but under that premise, you're saying that you would take a guy who was drafted in the 6th round, has no shot of playing, over the first pick of the draft because he's never actually stepped on an NFL field. That's preposterous.
Yeah, that's you're taking an outlier, and that's why I said I'm playing the odds here and saying, pedigree tends to matter in the NFL. Now you can point out first round failures all the time. You can point out certainly 3rd round failures, but I can pull out a hell of a lot of undrafted failures.
Right.
And those guys are the outliers.
There's also reasons why guys who get drafted high in the 1st round stick and they bounce around from team to team to team. Hey, there's that guy who was the 5th pick of the draft. And he's horrible, but some team is always willing to say, I'm going to give that guy another shot. I'm the team that can get something out of him. You don't see undrafted guys bouncing around the league from team to team.
By the way, Jalen Reagor's going to be in Foxborough. I don't know if he's going to be active.
Jalen Reagor. There you go. Just because he played in the NFL, do you want him getting snaps over somebody who just got drafted this year?
Now, in that case, probably not, but, because he's proven in 2 different spots. But, he'll get another opportunity. And by the way, he's on a team now that has no receivers. So, they're probably thinking, well, he's got some talent. You never know. As to your point, Mike, people are going to give those people chance after chance after chance because they have that baseline skill, those baseline traits that other guys don't have. But the bottom line here is the Eagles can't afford to lose any of those.
Right. The one thing with Josh Jobe, yes, he was here last year, but he never had to play because they made it through the season healthy. They never had.
How many plays has Tyler Steen played?
None.
0.
Okay. Well, then he's added Tyler Steen at least.
Well, a lot of people want Sidney Brown to start week 1. He's never played it down, but he might be the best option. I mean, certainly from a talent perspective, he's the best option.
Now, well, that's the question. Would you rather Sidney Brown? Would you rather Sidney Brown play or Terrell Edmonds, Justin Evans? Are you more of a fan of that duo getting the playing time, or would you rather just say throw Sidney Brown out there? He's got the highest upside.
I might be willing to take a chance because I've been critical of the Eagles, and it was more Gannon than anybody else last year for the fact that they didn't get Nakobe Dean on the field, and I thought that was shameful. But didn't on the Eagles depth chart, and borderline laughable, the Eagles depth chart, they have no punter listed. They have no punt returner listed. They have excess safeties. They got the Blankenship and the 2 veteran guys. The only guy they didn't list as a starting safety, they've got actually about 14 starters or 15 starters on defense, is Brown, which tells you, they're not going to rush him. I think that was a moment of truth from the Eagles yesterday. They're going to bring Sidney Brown along slowly, whether we like it or not.
Now, should the Falcons start Tyler Algier over Bijan Robinson because he has more experience?
I would say no. But that's me.
Nor would I. And oh, by the way, here's one more thing that people get nuts about. Ooh, who's starting? If one guy starts and plays 20 snaps and another guy comes off the bench and plays 40 snaps, what's more important? Who actually took the first snap of the game or who takes more snaps over the course of the game? I
would argue the best Philadelphia team I've ever seen, and I still say this to this day, is the 1982-83 Sixers, and the starter at power forward back when they had positions in basketball was Mark Ivoroni.
Yep.
The finisher was Bobby Jones, who's in the Hall of Fame. And that's more important. The guy who plays more is more important than the guy who starts. But when you're talking about Sidney Brown versus Terrell Edmonds, Justin Evans, that typically in the NFL is a non-rotational position. Now, it could be different. Like you could say Jalen Carter's not a starter, but he might end up getting more reps than anybody else by the end of the season. To me, that's more meaningful. Mm-hmm. At safety, not a rotational position. And if you're rotating, that tells me, you're not competent in anybody. So it depends on position as well.
Yeah, we were talking about the fact that, the preseason, you used to see a series, a half, something. These guys got to training camp, never saw them again, and you're going to unveil this team for the first time on Sunday with certain guys who no one's ever seen before. I mean, how many snaps did the Edmonds-Justin Evans duo get in preseason games where you're like, okay, I feel pretty confident and comfortable about what they could do based on yada? Nothing. There's been not enough of anybody who's going to play on Sunday that anybody has that you didn't know about, that you found something out about. Now, John, you got to see these guys a little bit more than the viewer.
Yeah. Well, like Reed, I mean, Reed, you haven't seen at all, because
exactly.
But he's, taken over that spot. But yeah, I one of my things, I think I mentioned this on your show, Mike, so I'll throw it out to both of you guys. Like, there is an eerie calmness about three particular players. Nakobe Dean, Reed Blankenship on defense, and offense, I'm not even going to boil it down to one player. Kenny Gainwell, and/or I'll do the Eagles depth chart, and/or DeAndre Swift, and/or Rashad Penny. There's an eerie calmness in those three areas that I do not share with most of the fan base. Like, I think Nakobe's going to be a good player. I think Reed's going to be fine. I think Kenny Gainwell is going to be fine. I think he's going to be the guy, at least in high leverage situations. But I'm not emphatically saying, oh, no problems whatsoever. I think Miles was better. I think TJ is going to be better, at least short term, than Nakobe, maybe not long term. And there's no question CJ Gardner-Johnson's better than Reed Blankenship. I'm sorry. There's no stinking question. That's not even close.
All right, so let's do the exact same exercise here that we did at the other two positions. Where do you think the drop off from what you got as far as production goes and what you would project to be the production this year would be? Where's the biggest drop off? Running back, linebacker, safety?
Oh, man. I don't think it's running back. I think the running back, by the nature of the position, it goes back to the conversation. You might have a stud running back. You let him go, you plug someone else in, and they generally will give you enough production that it's not an albatross of a spot. The safety spot, I definitely have, I think, the most concern. To say that Reed Blankenship is now leading the core, that gave you, and that's what I look at, the production you got. You had a guy that led the league in interceptions last year.
And missed 5 games, by the way.
Missed 5 games. Who's replacing that level of play? That's 5 turnovers. That's pretty big. I mean, to me, trying to replicate what you got from your safeties last year is going to be the most difficult thing, because I think you'll replicate what you got from Sanders production-wise. I don't know that they're better players, but I think you'll get 1,200 yards out of your running backs. I like Nakobe Dean a lot. I think he'll be an impactful player. The linebackers last year as a core or as a unit, I think, were probably more sound. But I definitely think the drop-off in what you got, big plays. And, look, Epps was just a solid player too. I mean, he was one of those guys. He wasn't spectacular, but he made his plays. He did his job. I think you'll get Reed Blankenship making his plays and doing his job, but what's the other guy going to do? Is he going to get 6 interceptions? Probably not. So I go safety as the bigger one.
So do I.
Yeah, but here's how it's interesting, because I think they could be more splashy at linebacker, but not as steady. And I think they could be more steady at safety, but not nearly as splashy. That's how I look at it. I think Reed is going to be a steady player, but he's not going to be a playmaker like CJ was. But guess what? CJ made some mistakes because he was making plays out there. So what do you value more, the steadiness or the playmaking? I would argue it's like a home run hitter in baseball. Give me the 3-run homer over the guy going 3 for 4 with 3 singles and maybe stealing a base, but he's not impacting the game. That's where I think CJ. So ultimately, I agree with you guys. Safety is the bigger issue.
All right. I'm going to get you on the record here, Mr. Gill, before we beat up on you for West Virginia getting scored on with 5 seconds to go by Penn State. Which coordinator will you feel you know more about after the game on Sunday? Because right now, I'm like this with both the offensive coordinator and the defensive. I got to see it with my own eyes. We saw what little they did in preseason. John got a first-hand look at the joint practices, which told you more than the preseason game, but I don't think it told you a ton. We'll learn a lot, maybe not at all, but we'll learn a lot about the two coordinators and how they handled their business this week. Who are you going to learn more about? The offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator?
Brian Johnson. I mean, you're going up against Bill Belichick in your first game as a coordinator. You're going to go against one of the masters of saying, hey, whatever you think you do best, we're taking that away from you. Figure something else out. So it'll be interesting to see in this first week, the first opportunity he gets, if Belichick takes A.J. Brown completely out of the game and says, he's not beating us this week, figure something else out. Does he say, nope, I'm going to A.J. Brown whether you like it or not, and try to force things that way? Now, I don't know that that's the game plan or whatever, or if that's what Belichick's taking away, just giving an example. So I think Brian Johnson, right off the bat, he's got to go against Bill Belichick. That'll be something there. On the other side of the ball, Sean Desai, the Patriots' offense is pretty limited. I mean, the quarterback's average. They don't have a lot of talent on the outside. They don't have Stevenson's all right. Their offensive line is in shambles. They got some problems on the offensive line over there. So I don't know. I mean, the Eagles could have a big day defensively. Desai is going to be a hero in this town because the other guy was hated so much. So I think we'll learn more about Johnson than Desai, and Desai will end up being like he will be overly praised based on the performance if they have a big performance on Sunday. But the Patriots, I think the biggest problem with New England is their offensive line's a mess.
Yeah, Riley Reef goes to IR yesterday. They go out, spend $5 million on a free agent, and the guy ends up on IR. I know the head coach of the Eagles hates when you use the word luck, but your guy gets hurt in the last preseason game, and he's got to go to the IR. That's some bad luck.
Well, and look, the strength of the Eagles defense, regardless of is the up front. I mean, they're just going to keep rolling guys at you, and if you are ill-equipped to block up front, you're in for a tough day at the office. And this is where, the stuff like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he made a lot of plays. Well, these guys get opportunities because the pass rush was so fierce last year. Can these guys who are not known for stuff, Reed Blankenship, can he get an interception? Of course he can. But is he
intercepted Aaron Rodgers?
He did intercept Aaron Rodgers, right place, right time. Yeah. But part of those things come from the pressure up front. If the Eagles' pressure is so fierce, like they hope, well, that opens the door for guys to make more plays. And the thing is, you got to be there to make the play, and you got to make the play when it's presented to you. And that's where I think the Eagles on Sunday will have Sean Desai's unit will have a big advantage is up front.
All right, Mike Gill, where were you watching when Penn State scored a touchdown with 5 seconds to go against West Virginia opening week?
I was at my house. I was resigned to the fact that we were not going to look. They are significantly more advanced than where we are right now, but kind of a low-brow move by the We Ares.
Style points. You got to get style points in college.
It's absolutely acceptable in college football to worry about margin of victory.
And actually, at Penn State, what was the final? 38-17, something like that?
14, something like that. Yeah, 17 maybe.
If Penn State beats West Virginia 31-14, it's not that impressive, to be honest.
Well, that's what I said. I left the game saying I didn't look at Penn State like, whoa, this team is going to be – I like the quarterback. They finally got a kid to make a play. He could throw. He's got a big arm. He made some plays for him. I thought he bailed them out of a couple situations because their offensive line had some problems up front with West Virginia. But, It was West Virginia's offense is just dreadful. Neil Brown is in way over his head.
31-15 became 38-15. So there's your final score. And yeah, they kind of needed that extra touchdown. So good job, James Franklin. And if you get the stick, Mike Gill in the eye, that's not bad. What T-shirt we got on before we let you go?
Well, I got stripped of my captaincy, so I got stripped of all my letters because I was
just a little Nike swoosh up there in the corner. All right,
I've been on vacation.
Mike Gill Show. Follow him on X, not Twitter. X, and
is it officially now X?
Yeah, officially now X.
Yeah, you know how you know it's X? Because you can't retweet anymore. You must repost. If you see something you like and you want to share it with your followers, you repost it, not retweet it. So
it's really not. I guess technically it's not a tweet anymore, just an original. I don't know what you call your original posting. Now you got to say, "Oh, I posted something on X" instead of "I tweeted something."
Although the website is still twitter.com.
Is it? I don't know. I think it's x.com. I think it is.
Well, if you put in,
I think both work. Both
right. If you put in twitter.com, you're still going to get there. They're not that stupid.
Did the other platform make it? Is it still going?
No, it's still going, but I don't.
What the hell was that? I didn't do that.
Threads.
Yeah, I never.
That was Mark Zuckerberg's answer
to Threads Road. Yeah, I don't think I missed out on that one.
Yeah, since I was on vacation for 2 weeks, I blanked out, so I went with the blank shirt.
There we go.
But I will be back. I will be back to
we're going to put the C back on your
tees starting next week.
Mikey Gill, thank you much. We'll talk to you again next Wednesday. That's Mike Gill from the Sports Bash, ESPN Radio.
Thanks, Mike.
93.
By the way, I disagree with Mike, Jody. We're going to learn more about Sean Desai than Brian Johnson. I think all season we're going. Brian, nothing against Brian. I think Brian's a really good coach, but my God, that offense is talented. Take away AJ Brown. I don't care. I'll just throw it to Devontae. Take away Devontae. I'll just throw it to Dallas. I got the quarterback. I got the offensive line. Brian Johnson's walking into a great situation. Now, to what you know how much respect I had for Shane Steichen. In the moment, could there be a questionable play call? Yeah, but they're so good offensively. Defensively, yeah, I mean, he's going to have to figure out some things. The front is tremendous, but other than that, in the corners.
See, maybe we're looking at this differently because I didn't ask my question well enough. I'm not saying who do I think has a tougher job or who's going to. No, I'm just talking about reveal themselves as to what their ongoing philosophy is going to be and what we can look forward to in trying to see what the Eagles are going to do over the next 16 games. Not who's going to actually do a better job. You're right. Sean Desai's got more heavy lifting to do because the Eagles' defense isn't as good as the Eagles' offense. Eagles' offense is one of the best in the National Football League. And statistically, we know how good the Eagles were last year, but they lost guys. And McDonald and McMullen and Gill are debating what happens if God forbid, Josh Jobe gets on the field. That could friggin' happen. It could happen the second quarter of the game on Sunday against the Patriots. If the Eagles take a hit, they think the offense will be fine. They'll be able to get over injuries. So that was the way I asked the question. But if your point is, if you were given a choice, say, do you want to coach the offense or the defense? Johnny Mack would say, I'll take the offense. I
get it's both for me. I mean, yeah, it's easier for Brian because, but it's both. I think we're going to see more because, it's Nick's offense. They're doing the same stuff. They're not changing on offense. I don't think they're changing much on defense, but they're changing personnel. And I think that's going to be, and I think we're going to learn more about Sean Desai because there's more to learn, basically. Like that offense is that offense, whether it's Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen, Brian Johnson, Kevin Patullo, same stinking offense, and they have the same players for the most part. Miles gone, Isaac Seumalo. Defensively, 5 new starters,
Major changes. Yep.
2 new coaches besides the coordinator, so 3 new coaches. So a lot of changes.
But I will say this, just from the, I don't want to say untrained, but from the casual fan's eye, it's easier to second guess the offensive coordinator than it is the defensive coordinator. Although they've made a cottage industry
not in this town. Not in
true.
this town.
That's true. But
Yeah.
play calling's play calling.
Yeah.
You can watch a play afterwards and say it was successful or it's not successful. You can watch a defensive play and go, you don't know exactly how he laid it out and who was supposed to do what and who filled their responsibilities. It's easier as just a casual fan to judge.
Yeah.
If play
I used to have great conversations with Doug Pearson about play calling, which I 100% agree with him. He's not the only one, but people don't judge play calls; they judge results.
Judge results, of course. That's what. That's
because
the point I'm trying to make. It's much easier to judge results of an offensive play than a defensive play.
Because Doug would admit, Doug would admit, like sometimes the players save my ass, and they make a play. I made a bad call in this situation. They made a play, or there's certain other situations where coach has the perfect play, and the left guard misses a block and it gets blown up, and you never know it. Right. So I think a lot of people don't recognize that they're not judging play calls; they're judging play results. That's my only.
He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. That makes us Mac and Mac Birds 365. Quickie timeout. Come back. We'll set up our next guest. We're going up to Beantown. We like to go behind the enemy lines when the Eagles have a specific opponent. Got a buddy of mine from Boston who's going to jump in and do us a Patriots preview coming up here on Birds 365.